Okay. A spider's thread hangs down to the lowest level of hell. Urged on by the evil omen hanging from the sky, corpses crawl out and overflow from a hole in the underworld. Tonight is the appointed time. The end of the fourth night. The one that returns this battle to the beginning. Hurry, hurry, hurry. They are like ants swarming around honey. The corpses are reborn from the pit to bring down their own self, the one seeking to break free from the endless cycle of death and rebirth. Don't let him escape. Don't let him escape. Don't let him escape. Don't let him escape. There's no night beyond this one. The corpses multiply infinitely and cover the street without end. Destroy, annihilate. This is pandemonium itself. A hell bearing the will to kill a human, to kill itself, manifests to fill the night. This is what we saw, right? Them getting stuck in Miyama. Far above in the skies, she raises her eyes to the stairs of over 2,000 meters in height and mutters indifferently. She shrugs her shoulders in resignation. It's a primitive and theatrical spectacle, but the stairway is definitely impressive. A bridge of light bisects the sky. A protagonist and a princess walk the translucent stairs hand in hand. She looks up at the scene, one that can no longer even be found in fairy tales nowadays. Despite how hopeless the situation is on the ground, she can't help but break into a smile. Holding the fort from atop the bridge's support arch, she returns her gaze to the surface. Yeah, someone was at the bridge. How much does she know, I wonder? Miyama is sinking into darkness. Welcoming the end of the fourth day, the town undergoes rapid transformation. Lights fade, people vanish, and the liveliness of the town freezes in place. At this place, this moment, the only ones who exist are those who participated in the Holy Grail War. The day and night which had never mingled until now interchange, and those who could never cross paths do. The adjoining plane of reality and fantasy, truth and untruth. This mere hour is precisely the borderline that separates the fourth day from the fifth. They had completely covered the whole of Miyama in under an hour. For humans, infinity is a metaphor. No matter how many, no matter how much you exceed the bounds of human deduction, all things have a limit. Infinity is nothing more than a word brought forth by the limits of our cognition. But the things before her eyes differ from that kind of incalculable concept. They are truly infinite. A limitless propagating chain. A final legion that became a conclusion at its beginning. A circuit of death with no breaker to annihilate itself, stoppable by none. A twisted ecosystem that its end wholly covers the ground.
500、600、視認できるだけでもう1000は超えている。
All the mystic code she has mustered together, and the feeling of jewels grasped tightly in both her hands no longer feel the slightest bit dependable. These could not delay them for even just a few minutes. Surely they will collapse the bridge in the blink of an eye, shroud the tower rising over Shinto, and voraciously bring down the spider's thread. With the end before her eyes, she grits her teeth. If the earth is hell, and the sky is the land of fairy tales, then the support arch she stands on is their boundary. Placing herself at the crossroads, she gazes at the distant sea. Above there is a vapor trail cutting straight across the skies. Below, there's an endless swarm of poisonous moths. As for where she should place herself, well...
迷うことなんてない。私はこの町を管理する遠坂の魔術師だ。
I hope they can't get themselves killed at this point. Just dealing with this. We can end it! All the people you're ending it for died. She clenches the jewels in both of her hands. No more looking up to the sky from now on. She had fulfilled the role she had assumed for herself and continued to protect the border. However, she has trouble controlling her breathing. The more she gazes at the surface, the more her gritted teeth creak. Her stiffened legs lack their usual lightness, and her shoulders are numb by an unfamiliar pressure. The corpses march on. They will penetrate the boundary. Before that happens, she'll mow down the first wave. But she's trembling, unable to take this first step. Whack goes her tightened fist against her forehead. She acknowledges being up against the odds from the start. Having taken a stand here, she has no choice but to fight until exhaustion. Moving her wooden legs, she takes the first step towards the swarm below. There will be no retreat. One more step and she'll be leaping towards her death. The all too familiar voice ruined her departure completely. I have a feeling quite a few people are going to be showing up.
ちょっと皆殺しが私らしいってどういう意味よ。これでもロンドンじゃ慈悲深い優等生で通ってたんですけど。
Well, you got in a fight in London. What? She loosens up a little. Also, why do you have to specify London? Do you feel like you've lost that reputation here? She stops herself and retorts without looking back.
いや、言葉通りの意味だが、競争相手がいれば周回遅れにし、喧嘩を売られれば二度と歯向かいなくするのが君の流儀だ。慈悲が働くのはその前か後かの話だろう。
It's regrettable, but that is exactly how it is. Her policy is to do the job thoroughly all the way. It was never her style to go for defensive strategies like considering how long she can hold out, or how to protect a boundary field.
そっか。やるからには殲滅戦ってわけね。ここはボーダーラインじゃなくてフロントラインだった。失敗した。そんなことを間違えてちゃ、そりゃ肩も重くなる。
She rotates her shoulders casually. It's like a baseball game. All the bases are loaded with none out in the 9th inning. And the batting orders from the second player. If you allow even 1 point, say bye-bye to your trophy. The pitcher had been giving undivided attention towards protecting the team, but her spirits are brought up high again, ready to throw one right past the batter.
にしても多すぎるか。負ける気はしないけど、さすがに取りこぼしは出るし。よし、いざとなったらはしごと沈めよう。
待て待て、調子が戻ったのはいいが、やりすぎだ。橋を壊せば収拾がつかなくなるぞ。連中は単純だからな。橋が落ちれば川を渡って信徒になだれ込む。
わかってるわよ。景気づけに行ってみただけだってば。
She clicks her tongue in satisfaction. Well, the river would probably take them longer to get across than the bridge currently. And all you really need to do is let a few pass, or enough pass, which would be a small percentage of them. Sinking the bridge as the last resort would actually probably slow them down a little bit more. It's as if she wants to say that destroying 1 or 2 bridges would make for a nice view. It would. It would. I agree. Tosaka, you're right. Blow it up. No, just start with that. Come on.
まったく。そういうところが徹底的なんだ。君、半年では淑女のたしなみも身につかなかったか。
生まれついてのものですから。そっちだって一言多いのは治ってないじゃない。
私のは人に合わせてのものだ。今はたまたま忠告しがいのあるマスターと契約したものでね。
それは奇遇ね。私もたまたま小言を多くするのと縁を作っちゃってさ。
She breaks out into a smile at this pointless exchange. In the middle of the bridge, directly underneath them, the corpses march on. This is the last opportunity to start the battle.
OK。付き合ってくれる？アーチャー。
ああ。 サーバントはマスターに従うもの。これでようやく最後に加減なしで戦えるというものだ。
The red cloak appears. As a symbol of fighting for her, the bowman displays this holy shroud. Needless to say, there is a deeper significance to the armament. This red symbol is used only on proper battlegrounds, where there's a master worth serving. Nostalgia that ought to have been forgotten long ago burns in his chest once more. For just one moment. For a moment that will last until the break of dawn. He's back to the self that used to stay at her side.
バカ、変なところにこだわるんだから。律儀っていうか、キザっていうか。
何？律儀さでは負けている。何しろよくわからないことのためによくわからない連中と命を張り合うのだからな。まったく無関係にも程がある。君の義教は買うわね。これではおいそれと貸しも作れない。
そうね。本当に高くついた右服だったかな。
She focuses on the enemy. Her magic crest spins halfway to full capacity, setting her magic to half the maximum power. There's a long way to go, after all. She has no choice but to fight on the bridge to the bitter end, right until this rainbow hanging in the sky vanishes.
衝撃は譲る。そちらの先生で群れの戦闘をなぎ払った直後、あとは持久戦だ。君はここから列の腹に穴を開け続け、私は魔術奏者から逃れた連中を切り伏せる。何か問題はあるか、リブ？
異論はないわ。私とアーチャーの二段構えでも抜け出るやつが出てくるだろうけど、それ私たちの役割は大軍の殲滅。細かい取りこぼしなんて目の前の敵がいなくなってから考えることよ。
There's no telling how many corpses will break through this formation, and there will probably be some that will swim across the river and head into Shinto on their own. Those are still less than one in 1,000. Well, if there's like 5 million of them, it's still quite a few. The outliers will have to be taken care of by those who walk the sky.
ま、おせっかい焼きなら他にもいそうだし、細かいのはそっちに任せるとしましょう。
Her crest is filling with light. Nimbly, she releases the magical energy and magecraft stored in the gems in the shortest time possible.
セット。
A huge flower blossoms from the dark-stained ground. The magic blaze lifts the curtains on the battle, turning into a star on Earth. It illuminates a path to the sky. Oh yeah, oh, I wasn't sure. I assume everyone's gonna show up if he's gonna show up then. Serpent's fangs pulverize the corpses, the forehead, the throat, the heart, the spine. Is an iron fist that strikes at each of these spots with a precision lightning speed. If this is a swarm of the dead, then standing in its way is the embodiment of a fierce god. The dead that crawled out of Kageyama shall meet death once more and be driven back to hell. 3 fatal strikes in the span of one breath. Reinforced through magic, his fists turned into iron clubs which crush the faces of the dead. But those are just superficial wounds. In spite of losing their faces and their intestines, the fierce claws don't stop coming. They were dead to begin with. What powers them is not the heart and mind, but rather plain malice. Their mad rampage to fulfill the curse will only end when their bodies are wholly annihilated.
なに、礼には及ばずだ宗一郎。殴ってもひるまぬ、切っても死なぬ相手では互いに分が悪かろうよ。
Really? No caster directly with them? A lighthearted tone, completely out of place for this battleground. Moonlight reflecting off the 5-foot-long sword in his hands, the samurai steps into the swarm of the dead. The tip of his sword dances in the air. The corpses likely realize they've been sliced only after they fall to the ground.
さすがに手足を断たれては動けぬと見た。宗一郎、面倒だが首より獅子を狙うとしよう。一撃必殺の心情には反するが、なーに、デク相手にはちょうどよい。
Flowers and grass. Their ways are different, but the words are not required between the two masters of their arts. intersecting. The fist and blade engage the enemy and overwhelm them. The backs against each other, sprinting through the battlefield. The two gods of death continue to overwhelm the dead.
しかし、どういう気変わりかな、総一郎。昨べまでは見逃していたというのに、今宵はムクロどもに打って出るとは。いや、さてはこの異常事態、お主の魔女めの失態か？
知らん。飽きたのなら眠れアサシン。これは眠りにつけば消える亡霊だ。夢中にいる者には何の危害も与えない。
Therefore, he had overlooked these shadows roaming the streets at night until today. But that still makes no sense. If what he says is true, then all he has to do is simply sleep tonight as always. No matter what their number is, there's no changing the fact that they won't harm humans in bed.
ほう。ではなぜこのような手間を取る？先に行くか後に戻るかは分からぬが、おとなしく眠れば日々に戻れるというのに。
そうだな。だがこの戦いはあれの願いだ。聞き届けないわけにはいかないだろう。
Assassin's long sword drops ever so slightly. The samurai looks stunned, as if taken by surprise.
そうかそうか、それは確かに。お主に甘えるなど一生できぬと思っていたが、少しは改心したと見えるな、キャスター。いやはや、なかなかどうして可愛らしいところもあるではないか。
お黙りなさい、このデクノボ。
Arrows of light rain down from the sky. Yeah, I suppose that was her MO fighting-wise. I guess that makes more sense. The witch's hammer turns into a squall and washes the dark away.
おお、やはり化粧には下法が効くと見える。本領発揮だな、キャスター。今宵の猫かぶり、格段生き生きと見える。
減らず口はそこまでになさい、アサシン。あなたの役目はマスターの援護と言ったはず。
怒るな怒るな。宗一郎と共に戦うのがお前の念願であろう。お前同様、マスターの喜びは私の喜びでな。とあれば多少の羽目は外すというもの。なあ、男として無理なきことだろう、宗一郎。
すまん。連れ合いの手前だ。手は抜けん。迷惑をかけるぞ、キャスター。
Both of them are bewildered. Those that know him would surely realize just how unusual it is to hear such a remark.
キャスター、新手だ。竜道寺を守りきるか、元凶を塞ぎに行くか、指示は任せる。お前の望む通り戦おう。こんな機会はおそらくは二度とはあるまい。
宗一郎様。
That's why you should have no regrets. Is that what he wanted to say? Kusaki Surjiro embraces her will. The witch accepts the end of the days, albeit with much regret in her heart.
承知していますわ、マスター。ここからは迷いなく自らの願いに沿いましょう。
The bells on her staff ring out. A magus from the Age of God starts weaving an even more mysterious spell.
で、どうするのだ、キャスター。このままでは飽きるぞ。どうだ、いっそ大元を潰しに行くというのは。
外に出られないあなたが言うことではないわね、アサシン。第一、そこまで手を貸す義理もないわ。私はこの場所を守れればいいだけ。恥知らずにも人の家に土足で上がり込むチリアクタに身の程をわきまえさせているだけよ。
A black shadow keeps spreading. Born behind the mountain, many of them descend. The mountain itself towards Miyama. Some of the corpses pushed by the horde pour even into Ryoto Temple. Nobody hates that more than Castor. Had she wanted to just protect herself, all she had to do was seal her master and herself into the temple. A boundary field to ward off the bodies would have been sufficient for just the two of them. However, on some unknown whim, she did something completely illogical. On the way to Miyama, these black stains detoured to Ryoto Temple by chance. Caster burned all of them to ashes, not sparing a single one. As a result, having sensed an obstacle in their path, they began concentrating on the temple.
当然よ。町のことなんてどうでもいいけど、この家に踏み入った以上は私の敵。ええ、遠慮なく焼き払ってあげるわ、アベンジャー。それがあなたの望みでしょうし。
A divine aria spreads along the empty sky. Not only is it more than enough to protect the whole of Ryoto Temple, it is a spell well capable of punching a hole in the very foundation they came from. I wonder if they went back to some of the interactions between her and Emiya, if there's like something like down the line where he stops or she stops calling him boy. I do vaguely remember that not being a thing for at least a little bit, but I think that was more a temporary thing due to the situation. Like, that would be the best foreshadowing for that sort of thing. She stops calling him boy when he realizes it's not Emiya proper.
正直な話、できるならもっと続けたかった。私の八つ当たりと知りなさい。
The witch protecting Ryoto Temple burns away the corpses headed for the town. Even if their numbers are unlimited, the annihilated ones will not come back immediately. Like a burst of divine punishment, the sorcery continues tearing the pandemonium apart. But the outpouring black stain still does not stop. The corpses seemingly cover half of the earth. This place will be protected no matter what, and the bridge shall greet the start of a new day undefeated as well.
けれど、宮間町はどうにもならない。
I would find it hilarious if they actually did do like a full planet shot and half the world was filled with the red lights, but they're all trying to go through the bridge to get to the other side. The situation. No, sorry.
頑張ってるようだけど、あの子たちはここまでね。
Heaving a sigh of pity or maybe compassion, the witch looks down at the town below. She's looking at the northern part of Miyama. Like the eye of the needle, a tiny clearing remains around a traditional residence standing there. The wave of corpses is trying to swallow the Emiya residence whole. Even one such as a servant rider cannot repel this onslaught on her own. Had it been only a single wave, she could have used her noble phantasm to sweep them away or petrify them with her mystic eyes. But this enemy is unlimited. Employing her noble phantasm, mystic eyes consumes large amounts of magical energy. She may hold the upper hand for a while, but as her reserves run dry, she will become unable to offer barely any resistance at all. Is she gonna have like the shoulder thingy? Ryder's hair flows, reacting to her master's voice. Her blade and the claws clash. She has nowhere to escape after leaping to the back. The corpses having invaded on the stone wall attack Ryder as if competing for an achievement. With her speed, she can slip through one or two of these claws easily. But these claws surround Ryder like a dense force of spears.
Sakura!
Oh, she's got the thing! I don't know what it is, but she's got the thing! The previously unstoppable Ryder abruptly comes to a halt. It does vaguely remind me of her evil costume. It's been a while since I've thought about it, though. The magic being employed now by her master, Mato Sakura. Even Sakura is still a magus, and using magic once or twice shouldn't warrant any surprise. However, the kind performed just now was one that Mato Sakura detests the most. Was it not taboo for her to draw on her innermost dark self, bearing her dark side akin to a blade?
いけません。魔力そのものを武器にする魔術などあなたにはまだ早い。彼らは私が迎撃します。あなたは室内で結界を維持してください。
The ancient's voice makes for another fatal opening. Oh, I can't wait till we have our cut to Fujine. The swarm of the dead pounced on the still servant.
声は祈りに。
A vast shadow skewers the intruders as if they were mere fog, capturing and swallowing them to the world below. That is the side of her she should have possessed as a magus. The vortex of darkness has no trouble sweeping the dead back to where they came from, to the underworld. To be able to bind opponents with invisible uncertainties. That is the special trait of the imaginary number magic.
Sakura, 大丈夫。これぐらいなら扱えます。心配はしないでライダー。私だって半年間少しずつ頑張ってきたんだから。
Straining her voice as if trying to encourage herself, she manages to keep her trembling legs and bodies about to rip apart from the magic's recoil in check. Does she respect her master's decision to continue defending this place, or does she take Sakura and flee elsewhere? There's still time to escape. The no Phantasm Rider can carry Matsu Sakura to Shinto in the blink of an eye. In spite of that,
ライダーは塀の守りに専念して。中に入ってきたのは私が追い返すから。
she retains her faith in Sakura, who is now holding her ground desperately against the enemy, and turns to her own battlefield. Originally, Matsu Sakura does not have the foundation to perform magic on her own. By forcing her own darkness, her magic circuits that can emit nothing but her shadow to the surface, she is able to function as a magus temporarily. By doing that, she is crushing the human side of her. In that state, she may as well be swallowed by her dark side if her heart wavers even a little. Ashamed and fearful of more than that than anything, she grits her teeth and continues on.
声は祈りに。私の指は大地を削る。
Thinking about it, this conflict could have been avoided. No, it should have been avoided to begin with. The remains of a servant enveloped the town. Night after night, these things were bursting out and overwhelming the place. Ryder sensed that immediately. But she did not put up a fight. They would simply pass those who are asleep, indulge in sleep as usual, and they will disappear. And by the time morning rolls around,
死は確かに。私の影は剣を振るう。
every time she repeats her aria, she languishes more and more in pain. She spits out words as if they were blood. I won't lose. A frail but powerful voice.
ナイト。私はここに。
On this night, before they realize, Ryder and Sakura were alone in the Emiya residence to greet the midnight end. The ones who advance forward and the ones who defend, saying nothing. They headed to their respective posts, leaving only Sakura behind. I won't lose. The despair Sakura felt when she realized it was excruciating. She was all alone again. Having been left on the sidelines away from danger, she was dejected at the thought of being the only one under protection. Thus, she made her choice to stay back here and fight, to protect the home of someone precious.
そうだ。私は置いていかれたんじゃない。私は信頼されて。
Even if she can't, she will still try to protect it to the bitter end. How could Ryder possibly pluck off this tiny emotion out of care for her master?
まあ、実際置いていかれたわけですが。ダ
メ！くじけそうになる発言は禁止！ほら、ライダー銅像！銅像の方にいっぱい上がってきてるから！
The purple serpent slithers swiftly up the wall. Ryder intercepts the avalanche of attacking creatures. The black flame protects her back. As the only magus remaining here, the girl that was left behind confronts the swarm corpses. The trivia defenses would probably last for another hour. Only 1 hour. This is but a drop in the bucket that will have no influence on the big picture. Sooner or later, the girl's determination will be swallowed by darkness. Unfortunately, these corpses lack any kind of intellect. If they could think, they would surely sneer at such desperate defense. They would realize there's nothing to be gained here and would concentrate on the front lines instead. Well, this is one way, yeah, to alleviate some of that pressure on Tusaka at the bridge. Though she still had more than half of her strength and magical energy left, the girl was gradually forced into a corner. Which is no surprise. These overwhelming numbers come from an infinite sea of malice. Her mind would snap before her strength fades. That is the obvious conclusion. Where's Bizette in all this, by the way? She's somewhere. It's not like she's up in the freaking moon, right? She feels as if under a pouring rain, mixed in with the hail, sneers, and killing intent. She begins to hear the sounds of the unavoidable end, though she is unsure of whether it is thunder or tremors. Not satisfied with the mere swarm of the dead, a battering ram hits her with the force of a runaway train. Her purple lips form the word run. With this, cremation follows the bitter fight. All that's left is to pray that her foolish determination would not be swayed by the shrieks on her deathbed. And then... And then... I was wondering who'd be the one to show up. As a new lead enters the stage, foolishness changes into reassurance. Los Alamos! The little... Was that this? Oh, was that this? I don't even... No, that was Muv-Love that had Los Alamos as a thing. That reminded me of it, though. The little girl and the giant mow down obstacles to their heart's content. With each swipe, corpses fly into the sky, and the enemy residence loses more of its walls. So much for protecting it! It's hardly surprising that Ryder is at a loss for words. They no longer seem to be allies. The girl and the giant are here just to cause destruction. Yeah, jump out of the way.
どうしてって見てられないからつい立ち寄ったのよ。私としてはどっちの味方もする気はないんだけど、このままだとあんまりにも不公平だから。
A charming smile. Side with... Why do you care about siding or not siding with people? If you just want to, like, you know, help each other live, that's a thing. Even now, as corpses are being pulverized around here, the little girl looks as if in the middle of a ballroom.
不公平って、イリアさん、この敵のこと知ってるんですか？まさか、こんなこといちいち考えていられないでしょ。私が言ってるのはさくらとリンのことよ。さっきから聞いてればバカなことばっかりなんだもん。ここだけは守り通すですって。ほんとダメね、さくらは。そんなだからリンに勝てないの。
Wait, do you mean win her over, as in, like, win her affection, or win versus Rin for the other obvious thing they might be competing for? Her words make Matsusaku's mind go blank. Dumbstruck, her eyes are nothing but tiny dots, and yet her spirit that had been about to break lifts up its head once more.
イリアさん、それはどういう... 受けに回ってる限り勝てないってこと。知ってる？リンはさっさと最前線に移動して一番いいところを独り占めしてるんだから。こんなところで無駄に意地を張ってるよりずっと劇的で高得点な位置づけってわけ。それって高得点というより同じことよ。でも結局はリンだって守ってるだけだし、それってまだるっこしいでしょ。本拠地が分かってるんだからそこを潰した方が早いし、何より姉さんよりポイント高いですか？そういうこと。私は行くわ。たどり着けるかどうかはわからないけど、リンにばかり任せておけないもの。さくらはどうする？一緒に行く？
A wordless reply. After hesitating, she gulps and looks back at the little girl.
それじゃあ行くわ。さあ、一度きりの見せ場よ、バーサーカー。遠慮はなし。立ちふさがるのはみんな壊して、あなたの強さを見せつけなさい。
The runaway train picks up speed again. Following her guide, the giant plunges into the black, snowy field. The destination is its source. They head towards the overflowing graveyard without knowing whether they will arrive there or not. Even if they cannot achieve their goal, the impact of their actions is no longer but a drop. It is a ripple that will now sway the big picture. The interlude continues. A few lights glow in the dark. A resistance so small as to be immeasurable. They take upon themselves to stop the Dark Horde. In the end, it's nothing more than putting a band-aid on an open wound. The wound will not close. Despite all their efforts, they cannot stop the end from coming. No matter how desperately the bridge is being defended, there is no way to prevent the corpses from landing in Shinto. It has been 1 hour since the manifestation of the pandemonium. The creatures that penetrate their defenses scatter away like black dots and begin to roam around Shinto. The best of their efforts are still insufficient. That is a steep price for the peace and tranquility of everyday life. And thus, there is but a single way left. For the few teams of masters and servants keeping the advancing corpses in check, without the strength to fight against the entirety of the creatures, they'll have no chance to greet the new dawn. That is too much to ask for. On this night, when almost everyone is asleep, where could such a savior be found? Well, there's one of them we haven't talked about yet. Well, also Bizette, too. A loud choir of corpses singing. Corpses sing a victory. And to the start. Smiling, they rush towards the moon altar, the path winding all the way to the moon. But...
Stop. いい時間なんだから、もう少し静かにしてくれない？子供はおとなしく寝ている時間なのに、これじゃあうるさくて眠れないよ。
An impossible force exists here. Entering Shinto, the corpses head towards the tower. They couldn't possibly know. If the creatures that envelop the city are like a big wave, then he's like a typhoon. Oh, right, there's Gilgamesh and Lancer still, too. An incarnation of savagery itself. It would blow away anyone of lesser will. That boy's enveloped in a peculiar scent. Silver ash is at his feet. The swirling aroma enshrouds the young man and the enemy like smoke.
やあ、どこの何かは聞かないけど、こんばんは。こんな夜更けに大勢で出かけるなんて、何か大きな催し物でもあるのかな?
The boy stays exceedingly calm. In spite of the outpouring of creatures from the underworld rushing towards him, there's not a trace of timidity in him. Instead, his innocent visage resembling that of an angel.
ま、どんなイベントだろうと興味はないんだけど。それよりリーダーはみんな？だよね。どいつもこいつも測ったように同じ顔だし。困ったな。こういうのってリーダーが責任を取るものでしょ？群れ全体の失態は頭をすげ替えることで解決するものなんだけど。
Some sort of ecological shift appears to be taking place. Having nothing but a simple objective in mind, the creatures are rapidly unifying around him. First and foremost, for their one common goal, their instincts tell them that in order to take over the tower up ahead, they need to concentrate the violence here. And second,
全員がリーダーなら仕方がない。面倒だけど、君たちみんなに責任を取ってもらおう。
And second, for the first time since their inception, they have begun to feel terrified of the enemy in front of them. The corpses stir amongst themselves, yet more of them gather around the boy, encircling him ever so tightly. The central park is filled to the brim with corpses. The wasteland, which was the last battleground of the Holy Grail War 10 years ago, turns to hell once more.
一匹見たらなんとやらってやつかな。あのアーチャーとマスターはよくやってるけど、相手のたちが悪かったか。まったく、お前たちは兵というより病気の類だ。一ついれば際限なく増えるなんて、僕の一番嫌いなものじゃないか。
The swarm accumulates into a mountain, striving to crush the boy from all sides. Once they swallow him, that'll be the end of it. This unidentified being is still only a minor obstacle to them. They are the side of the invaders. That role will not change. Still, if it's an invasion, shouldn't occupying the tower be their final goal? The situation in Shinto is completely different from Miyama. While there were well over 1,000 corpses to reach Shinto, it's still a relatively small number. In which case, shouldn't they be heading straight towards the tower, not...
ここに来ちゃった理由がわからない？虫にはこれが上等でね。ほんと、反言の子に誘われてよく集まる。お前たちには過ぎた贅沢だけど、今夜は無礼講だし。ああ、お前たちが地獄を歌うというのなら。
A wicked grin spreads across his face. Elation and derision mixed together. A mountain of corpses towers overhead. Judgment is passed, there and then. Like the passing of a squall, the invaders turn into endless scatter, shot and rush towards him, tearing him to pieces.
Yoi kaimaku da. Shinimono gurui de utae zatsunen!
It is all to weed out the sin. A storm even greater. A storm even greater than the Dark Invaders, the Golden Annihilator, has descended. All forms of calamity that deny life, no, deny existence itself, gather in a rowdy mass before the king. Overwhelming truth befalls the corpses screaming hell.
出番だエア。お前とて不本意だろうが。何？これも先達としての務めよ。真実を知る者として一つ享受してやるがいい。
God, I haven't thought about this sword in ages now. Obeying its master, the Sword of Rupture roars to life. It is itself the origin of all lands of the dead, the first memory of life. If they scream hell, then it creates hell. Before heaven and earth split, this land was made from lava and gas, a hell of both scorching heat and intense cold. Savagery was never recorded in the history that was passed on, but it was written in the genes unseen. That's right. Hell is where all life is not tolerated, the original form of this magnanimous planet.
夜道を開く。存分に歌え、亡者ども。何退屈はさせん。俺とてこのような気まぐれは一生に一度あるかないかでな。財の出し惜しみはせん。夜明けまで命をとして持ちこたえよ。
The eye of the storm isn't a center of windless tranquility, but a rift leading to hell itself. The corpses that had set foot in this realm plummet back into the nothingness from which they came. How could one expect the likes of the whales of the damned to stand up to the truth borne by the King of Heroes himself? I don't know. The great army of corpses that had formed at Shinto is thus destroyed. This cannot be called a battle. It is the wrath of nature itself. Okay. I think he's got it. I think he's good. Anyone else need help? The distant thunder is without end, and the storm continues opening the path to the underworld. Swarm that land in Shinto is mopped up by a one-man army. It is a shame that this servant never planned to destroy those creatures from the start. He attacks the swarm, but he shows not one bit of interest in the small fry scuttling towards the tower. This one-man army's objective is not to defend the tower, but rather to exterminate the irritating and noisy pest. He pays no attention to the lucky ones, creatures that beat the 1 in 1,000 odds to escape the raging storm and head downtown. And as you might expect, these lucky enemies are still innumerable. If even one of them manages to reach the tower, the corpses will be permitted to exist. That is their greatest weapon. Thus ends the interlude. The innumerable army whose overwhelming force should have been guaranteed an unquestionable victory finally breaks down into single units. Nevertheless, they are finally at their destination, stairs leading to the moon. One last move. All they have to do is to reach out and crawl up the wall. With that, everything will be brought to completion. Saber time? Maybe. She did make that promise, in a sense. I wonder if she realized herself about Angra Mainyu. Looking at the peak of the tower, happiness starts spreading across the resentment-filled hearts. There's a joy of definite victory. The relief of surviving to the end. It doesn't matter how long or how far the traitor advances. Once they are here, the creatures will climb the steps and welcome the new corpse. However, the thousands of creatures that have penetrated all defenses in their path tilt their heads in confusion. Well, that's a song I remember! They have already arrived. By now, their malice should have already bathed the tower in crimson red. Yet it remains solid black, as it always been. The only red is crawling in the ground, scattered around the tower. The stampeding corpses stop. A silent whirlwind envelops the tower. There's no entry but the front door. Swarm stands completely still in front of its majesty. O numerous corpses, look yonder and prepare thyselves. Thou bears witness to the beauty of a dazzling sword, the embodiment of an untainted ideal wrapped in an armor of azure and silver. Here. The true guardian stands, the absolute final defense. Enveloping this tower, an invisible shield is the wind of mystery, the sheath of her holy sword. Soldiers that made it start squeaking in excitement. There's only one way they have left. No, actually, from the very beginning. There's been no other way for these creatures. The corpses are now swarmed. They move onto the obstacle ahead of them. Instinct tells them there's nothing but defeat waiting for them, but aggression is what defines them.
貴様らが何者であるか、是非は問わぬ。
The knight does not move. There is not a trace of impurity in her shining sword. It is not the heavens her gaze is directed to, but to the corpses in front of her.
立ち去れとは言わん。ここは我が主の望みにして、我が信念を叶える場所。その遠さが、この希望を望まぬというのであれば、
Her flowing voice is fierce yet calm. No one can possibly know just how much emotion was put into those words. Just like how he did not bid farewell to her. She keeps it concealed in her heart.
ここは未来を重んじる者のみが至るはしごだ。私にも貴様らにも踏み入る余地はない。それを傲慢と呪うのならば。
No room for hesitation. He is not the only one lowering the curtain. Everyone who gathered and fought on this night. For the sake of the future they wish for, they discard this illusion.
いざ、視力を尽くして来るがいい。この剣にかけて、貴様らの挑戦に応えよう。
Ooh. Did you manage to do that without blowing up the freaking town and the buildings? That is... I gotta be honest, the shot from above, that was fucking awesome. Just like light pouring through the freaking... streets. That was fantastic. The golden light drives back the encroaching black pollution. Those who walk the sky may never know of the stars glittering on Earth. With this, the interlude comes to an end. Albeit quivering dark red still looms over the town, bright sun rays will surely dispel the darkness in the end. There are no more stargazers left among those fighting on the ground. Their wills, meetings, and partings will all end on this night. And now, one whose heart has long since fulfilled its role watches over the sluggish end of the reproduction that took place in this boundary field. There's nothing left to say. A shining upside-down comet shoots towards the outside. He sees off the spider's thread, unreliable and frail, yet which managed to reach all the way to the very end. Dawn approaches. Like that, the path continues even now.